Hi bookish friends, it's me Michelle here, back with another video, and today I wanted to have fun and talk about one of my favorites, Stephen King. He obviously needs no introduction. However, if you've never read one of his books, maybe you will after watching this video. Want to pick one up. So I'm here to not only gush as a fan about him, but also, bring a couple books of his to your attention that you might want to check out. So these are the things that I really enjoy and appreciate about Stephen King. First of all, I love how prolific of a writer he is. A couple years ago, I read one of his books called Fairy Tale, and I wasn't a big fan. It didn't really, didn't do it for me, but that was great because I knew I'd only have to wait a couple more months before another Stephen King book came out. He writes at an unbelievably fast rate. And, if you've seen recent interviews with him, he's really at age 76 or so, not really showing any signs of slowing down. I hope he keeps writing for a very long time. And it's very clear that he loves what he does. The second thing that I really love and appreciate about Stephen King is his sense of humor. Now, I know he's been kind of pigeonholed as a horror writer, and if you take all of his extensive body of work into consideration, yeah, he probably has more books that would fit into that category than not. However, he has a lot of books that, explore all types of different genres. But one thing that is kind of a trademark of his is his humor. He makes some of his characters say the funniest things in his novels. And not only are they kind of outrageous in their actions, but their words. And, he also has a self-deprecating sense of humor. Like, he will reference his own books in his books and kind of joke about that. So I do really appreciate that, especially, a lot of Stephen King's books have very serious subject matter, and it's really nice every now and then to get a little wisecrack from a character or a little dose of sarcasm or something so outlandish that it's so funny, just to break up the seriousness of the book that you're reading. So I really love and appreciate that. The next thing I do appreciate about Stephen King is that he is so much more than strictly a horror novelist. Many of his books have a lot of different themes going on with them. One of my favorite of his books being Cujo. On the surface, this is a book about a Saint Bernard who goes down a rabbit hole, gets bitten by a bat that has rabies, and the story goes from there. The dog gets more symptomatic as the story goes, and all the repercussions that follow as a result of that. However, this is much more of a book than meets the eye. In this book, we follow a lot of the people in this little town in Maine. It's kind of a farming community, and a couple of the characters are, pretty dislikable, and I love that. I love a really devious character written really well. But we are following a couple. Mainly, the wife has been having an affair on the husband. The husband goes out of town on a business trip. And the guy she's having an affair with in the town is one of the antagonists of the story. He's a horrible person. He's not smart. He is a bully. He is abusive. But she can't get herself disentangled from this relationship because he's threatening her with blackmail. He threatens that he's going to tell her husband, etc. So there's that little subplot going on. We also have the story of the husband in this relationship who works for an advertising firm. And recently, one of their clients is facing a class action lawsuit. Their client being a cereal company. And because they had used a certain red food coloring in their Raspberry Zingers cereal, a couple children had inadvertently gotten really sick and died. So he has to go out of town for an extended period, and that's when we get the drama with the bully that this woman's having an affair with. So there's that. There's a couple other really interesting, quirky people in this town. So it's a fascinating read. Like I said, what I love is that his books are way more than what they would appear to be on the surface. And, you know, why I think he's so much more than a horror writer. Another thing that brings me to, another thing I love about him is the variety of work of his to choose from. We've got, you know, straight up horror novels, such as Holly. We've got a mixture of horror and coming of age story, which is It. To me, the most interesting part of this, in fact, are the young people, the kids in this story. And like I say, it's, you know, yeah, there's some horrific, you know, kind of surreal moments, but it's also about the people. And we've got another one from the 80s, Pet Sematary, which is, for me, the overarching story in here is the grief. And, you know, what the father goes through, what the neighbor goes through, they're very relatable on a lot of levels. So yeah, this is a lot more than just, you know, a zombie cat story. So there's that. He's also got books such as 11/22/63, which is more like a portal fantasy type of a story. Historical too. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily classify this as a horror, but you know, there's so many different things to read from him. And if you're just wanting to learn about Stephen King, a good one to read would be his memoir called On Writing, where not only does he talk about the craft of writing, he also goes into his own story, his life. And his life reads almost like one of his novels. Like, he's almost died a couple different times. He had a really rough start, really rough upbringing. And, you know, he talks about how he got his first big break, which was the novel Carrie, which his wife Tabitha retrieved out of the garbage. He had thrown it away because he didn't think it was, you know, good. So, yeah. So there's that. And if you want to learn about writing, this is also an excellent book. And one of the main points he says in here is, you know, if you want to be a great writer, you first have to be an avid reader. I also love that about Stephen King. He's just such a fan of books. He loves reading as much as all of us in the BookTube community do. And, or maybe more so, who knows? But yeah, so that's another thing I can respect, is that he genuinely is very passionate about what he does. Another thing that I really love and appreciate about Stephen King is his ability to write a quirky character really convincingly. I mean, who could forget Annie Wilkes from Misery, who was so greatly portrayed by Kathy Bates in the movie adaptation? In fact, I like the movie adaptation better than the book, but, you know, his characters are, he creates these eccentricities and personality traits that would never even occur to me that people would have. Like, it's crazy. It takes his work to the next level as far as I'm concerned. And I love to read, you know, a small town inhabited by all these really kind of eccentric people that I have never met before, and I get to meet from reading his books. So in that way, it also, you know, expands my world and makes me learn about different people that are out there and do actually exist. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who do have mental health issues or, you know, extreme personalities, let's say. So I really appreciate how Stephen King brings those people to life in his fictional settings. Speaking of that, I also appreciate that most of his books are set in Maine, where he still lives to this day. I love that he stayed local. I love that, you know, again, I think he seems to be very down to earth, and he's been married for so long. He lives in the same state. The residents there, from what I can tell, what I've read online, like comments from people who actually live in the same town as he does, or the same community, they all have really nothing but good things to say about him. He's very charitable, does a lot of work with libraries. He's donated a lot of money to causes he believes in. And he just seems like a really all-around good person. So what more do you need to know about the guy? I would love to meet Stephen King. You know that question of if you could invite certain people to a dinner party, living or dead kind of thing? Stephen King has always been on the top of my list for that question. Like, I think he would be a lot of fun to sit around and have a conversation with over dinner. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, so my last point of why I love Stephen King is that he's kind of, to me, like the literary Ben and Jerry's ice cream. There is a flavor for every taste, everybody. If you are not sure, if you want to, dive into something like It, which has horror elements and it's a chunker, he has little novellas that are a lot not horror. They're more like literary fiction, but with some magical realism and some fantastical elements to them, such as his book, Elevation, which is a teeny little novella that I read last year and I absolutely loved. Highly recommend. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Pick it up from your library if you want to, just get a little sample of his writing. He's got books. He's got a lot of short stories collections, like this one that just came out not long ago. I haven't read this yet, but I can't wait because who knows what his imagination has in store for me in these stories. You like it darker? Yeah, his latest collection, but I mean, he's got a backlist full of short story collections. Or you could pick up something like this novel called Revival, which, if Salem's Lot is his so-called vampires book, this would be considered like his Frankenstein book. This has themes of religious zealotry. It has themes of kind of a cultish vibe. It's got themes of family, relationships. Really extreme things happen in here. It's also about the ego and the desire for power that some people get really carried away with and leads them down a really treacherous path in life. So, as you can tell, there's a lot going on in this book. Revival, one of my favorites. And, it's not that big of a commitment if you just want to read something by him. But you don't want to take on 11/22/63 or It or Under the Dome. But yeah, like I said, there is so much to choose from. I hope you do check him out. If you do, let me know if you have read any of his books. I'd love to hear what your favorites are. My personal favorite, like I said, probably, I love Cujo. I loved Holly. This book especially because, he has 2 villains in here, 2 antagonists that you would not expect. And that's another thing I love. He does not shy away from killing off people who you don't think will be killed. He does not shy away from controversial kind of subject matter. But at the same time, he does not come across as preachy. He still leaves it up to the reader to draw their own conclusions. I appreciate that as well. So I think I've said pretty much all I have to say about how I feel about Stephen King. Like I said, I'd like to know if you've read any of his books, what your favorites are. And thank you so much for watching and listening to me gush about one of my favorites, Stephen King. Have a great day. See you in the next video, guys. Bye.